Want to learn about writing about challenging topics in your children's book? Then this is the episode for you. Hi, I'm Tonya Duncan Ellis, a children's author and host of Write This, My Author interview show. And today I am pleased to welcome Roxanne Chester, a children's author, attorney, and advocate for the Unhoused. Roxanne's going to share information about her newest book and projects and also talk about her author journey. So I will be inviting her on. I hope she comes on here. Oh, she's new to Instagram Live. So let me get her on here. I've accepted. I know she sent me the invite. See what's going on. TechNut keeps doing that. Okay, Roxanne, I'm going to send you an invitation and just click it and you should be able to join me. She's here, and thank you guys for joining us. She's here. We're just trying to get her on. I don't know what she's doing. I told her to get. I see somebody else requesting to join that isn't even on the live. Another person to maybe get them on. I don't know why this keeps happening. And I don't, Roxanne, are you on the call right now? Are you here? Put in the comments. Just when I sent the invitation, click on the live. Okay,
Ah,
yes, you're here. Hey, we made it.
yeah,
Yes.
I'm sorry. And I,
Okay, well, I'm so happy to have you here. Always something going on with technology,
yeah,
isn't it?
yes, big learning curve.
I know. Well, I'm so happy to have you on, and I was really excited when I read about your book when you reached out to me after I was calling for people to invite on my show on the 12 by 12 book challenge, because it sounds like very important work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's a very important topic. It's what we see, at least here in the Bay Area, and I'm from Los Angeles. It really is what we see around
Right,
us.
right. So, can you tell us a little bit about your book? Tell people tuning in what it is, the title, and what it's about.
Yeah, the title is This Is My Bag, A Story of the Unhoused. And it's for ages 5 to 8. It's a children's picture book. And it's about the different faces of people experiencing homelessness. And so it's told from multiple perspectives, multiple point of views. And it follows a person experiencing homelessness to different places where they can find rest.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Now, do you have a copy of the book handy to show us or?
I do.
Yes. Oh. And that's great for children to see because I know when I visited, especially San Francisco, there's so many people there who looks like they're living on the street. It's really saddens me to see that.
Yeah, and there are different ways a person can experience homelessness too. In RVs. I mean, it's where there's unstable housing.
Right.
And so that could take the form of couch surfing. It can be a family that is just moving, places and or even sharing homes because right now the housing situation is unstable. And so it takes many forms.
Right. Now, how did you get involved in this type of work?
Well, through my volunteer efforts, I've been volunteering for 15 years at Project Homeless Connect, and they're an organization in San Francisco. In fact, their next day of service is coming up. I'm looking at my calendar on the 20th, and they, shut down the Bill Graham Center downtown San Francisco, and it really is a one-stop shop where people can, get their DMV license, reading glasses, housing assistance, everything. So I've been doing that kind of work for over 15 years and also the work I was doing as an attorney and people in economically challenging situations and primarily as a public defender because people there when they qualified usually it was low income and the housing situation sometimes would be unstable and I found sometimes I was wearing different hats when I was providing help.
Now, what was the impetus that led you to write a children's book? You worked as an attorney and an advocate,
Yeah.
so why did you write a children's book?
Yeah. I mean, this is part of, multiple manuscripts where I'm a children's book writer. And so this was one of the topics that I tackled. And so it was taken from the experience and the community that I was working with. And so it led me to write a children's book about it. And also in the back matter, you know how every children's book has a kind of inspiration, a kind of spark. And this one came from an experience with a friend of mine who was leaving her home, and she opened her door to find a person who was unhoused, on her doorstep. And she knew the person from the community, but she had her child with them, with her, and had to kind of step over them. And
Oh,
that
man.
and that kind of stuck with me, that, what does that do for, well, first of all, the person who's there unhoused, in their situation that's that dire. But
Mhm.
also for the child, when nothing is said and the person's kind of, of course they can't say something at the time, hey, let me talk to you about, what I just did. But later, how do we actually start talking about what happened and what we see around us? And my fear was like, well, does a child, will they ultimately have a kind of, will it be normalized?
Mhm.
Will there be a certain kind of, well, this is just what happens, if something isn't talked about. And so,
Right.
yeah, yeah. So it kind of became like, what, let's create a kind of conversation starter. Let's start to really open this up and shed light, on something, and not have shame even, with it either. So yeah. So yeah, it's a long answer, but that's what kind of sparked the
Right.
book.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, have you written other children's books about different issues, or is this your first? Is this your debut book?
Yeah, this is the debut book. And then there are two manuscripts that are under submission. And one is about skin tone, and it weaves in color theory. And the idea is to have a kind of shared experience when using the color wheel, and our shared humanity. And then the other one is about dementia, and young children to really become comfortable with an aging grandparent and the feelings that they may have, and also the feelings that the person having cognitive decline, what they're feeling, and how people can still find connection through music and through food and through smell, and how a child can still kind of be proactive and have steps, to help their loved one, and not just feel that, oh well, this is what's happening. It's like, no, what can I do, to help?
Right. So you approach some of these more difficult issues just to expose children to the concepts and help them relate to them. And many of us, I have family members with dementia. So, I mean, that's a common topic for many of us.
Yeah, and it's more and more prevalent,
Right.
with population. Yeah. And I say this all from, I can't speak for other people, but it's from my own experience, with the people around me, and what has helped and what hasn't, and the different feelings I go through, my family, my daughter goes through, and just trying to distill that into a children's book.
Mhm. Now, how did you move from being an attorney to writing children's books?
Yeah.
What was the segue for that?
Because I'm realizing there is, that uncommon. It's interesting, but I always loved to write, and I know it sounds like a cliche, but even as a child, I had my journal, and it was emotional expression. It was my way of getting my thoughts out. And my theory is that when you start with something, it doesn't matter what that tool is. It can be, cooking, it can be piano, it can be photography. It becomes the tool, the language, that kind of thread that goes through life. And so, I started with journaling, and then I found myself writing stories when I was in high school. And then I went to college, and writing was always that thread. And but for some reason, I didn't think it was viable. It just, maybe I didn't have mentors or people around that kind of said, no, 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 you can do something with this. And so I went into law, which of
Mhm.
course is a lot of writing, a lot of discovery, a lot of emotions. And I kept getting feedback that, you're a good writer. And I was like, oh,
Mhm.
thanks, and I realized that out of a lot of it, along with helping people, I love the writing aspect. And so I was taking creative writing classes. And then I had my child, and I started to read children's books. And I was like, wow, this is such a great way to take a big idea and put it into something that's accessible, which is completely hard to do. It's like that saying about ballet. The ballet looks beautiful, but no one sees the bloody feet, that the
Mhm.
ballet has.
Right.
And so it led me into studying the craft. And
Right.
yeah, and that takes, a lot of time, skill, a lot of determination. But I fell in love. I fell in love with the genre, the expression, the illustrations, the people, the community. So yeah, that's what led me into children's books.
Right. And I've noticed that even myself, I started in journalism and then I went to business school. But a lot of people get in parallel careers because we enjoy, and even with marketing and things, I loved writing. And then I discovered 12 by 12 and different, I met other authors. But growing up, I think now with the internet and things like that, it makes it more accessible. But
Yeah,
then, yeah,
meeting up too and just talking to people, because I think what really switched it for me was when I went to a meetup group and I was with other creatives, and that's,
right.
yeah, made me realize, wow, I feel really comfortable in this space. Even though writing can be very solitary, I
Mhm.
really enjoyed the actual community. And maybe some of it too is once the ideas kind of come out into the world, it's more real,
Mhm.
than being within. Yeah.
Now, how did you get your agent, or what was the process like for you to get representation and book deal and all that?
It was fairly straightforward because when I went to, and this was pre-COVID, it was a roundtable of creatives, 20 of us with manuscripts. And one of the people there was starting an agency, Jesse Bird. And um, it took a year or so, but once he was starting the agency, he tapped me and said, I would love for you to be part of this. And so it was actually by just being out in the community and kind of showing my work to other people that it ended up finding an agent.
Mm, that's good. So that's because there's some people who search for years and they query and all that. So I guess the networking and connecting with other creatives is a good idea for people.
Yeah, and a little pinch of serendipity.
Right. But then I find with serendipity, even in the writing, with my own author journey, just continuing to learn, grow, do things, and keep yourself out there, things happen. Because
It's
even
true.
listening to your journey is very similar to different journey, author journeys I've heard.
Hmm.
So it's really
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. You just keep at it.
Hmm.
You keep at it. Eventually, that opportunity. What is it when like hard work and
It's preparation
yeah,
or
and then opportunity, and it's just waiting for that opportunity. Yeah.
exactly. Now, what has the reception been for your book? Have you gotten it out in your community, or how have people, what have the feedback been?
Been wonderful feedback. A lot of people approaching me to say, thank you, for talking about this difficult subject. And, I've been doing school visits and lots of questions from children, and so it's been a wonderful reception. I think about a very important topic that doesn't get enough conversation around it.
And really, just as you were speaking, I was thinking myself, your book opens up the conversation for parents with their children because I know, as I described to you earlier, I was in San Francisco with my kids, and there were homeless people. There was one woman who didn't even have clothes on her bottom. And I'm like, oh, Lord, and I didn't know what to say. I'm just trying to get my kids on out of there. But that's a good way for kids to learn empathy and to talk about what's going on and how we can help other
Mhm.
people.
Right. And how, being homeless, it's not a monolith. There are different ways that a person can experience homeless. And even with those different experiences, there can be shared feelings.
Right.
So,
And it's showing that humanity of all of us, because like you said, I've even years ago lived in Washington, D.C. for a while, and it gets where people are there and you're just walking by like they're a tree or something there. People aren't looking at the humanity of other people.
right, exactly. And that's why too, the book itself, there's like a refrain that keeps going about, this is where I rest, this is where I rest. Because the idea is to have that kind of actively thinking about what would it feel like if you had to always move, if you were always moving. And one of the questions in the back matter is, if you had a bag with everything important, to you, what would you put in it?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's it. So what is the storyline without telling all the details? What exactly is the storyline of your book?
Yeah, it's a person who is walking through the community, but that person, the main character, changes. And so it can be someone who's couch surfing, it can be someone who's finding a shelter. Even the cover kind of hints at a
Hmm.
child, with their backpack,
Oh,
just going to school, but they're experiencing homelessness too, or, an unstable situation. Um, so yeah, I don't want to quite give away
right. I don't, you
but
got to buy the
but
book. I don't want
yeah.
you to tell the whole story yet. Okay. Yeah. Well, that gives the picture of what's going on. Now, here's the question I have as well. I noticed that recently people are called the unhoused. So is that because, as you're describing, there are different situations, or why has the terminology changed? Or at least
Yeah,
I've just become aware, in the past few months that now you should say unhoused.
yeah, because sometimes there can be an issue with home and homeless. And it's like, well, sometimes home is where you are sometimes too. The
Mhm.
the issue is the
Oh, yeah, because they can have their own community and family of people, and that's their home.
Yeah,
Okay.
and and also, the issue of housing insecurity, affordable housing. And so when you say unhoused, it's like the issue many times is affordable housing.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that clarification, because I was like, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't know. And actually, years ago, when I have worked as a journalist and I wrote an article about an encampment of people who were living together, who were unhoused, and one of the parents of one of the people I featured wrote in saying they have a family, they're not homeless, we're here. And a lot of the people who during that time, that was many years ago, there were a lot of mental health issues that led to them being in that condition. So there's lots and many were veterans too, who had come back and had difficulty integrating back into society.
Right. There are many different demographics, and one of the fastest growing are people 55 and older, and also people who age out of the foster care system.
Oh, that's so sad. Yeah.
Or,
And
or
I've heard
even
that. Yeah.
Yeah, or even LGBTQ plus. Up 40% of the young people who are,
Oh,
yeah. So
wow. Wow. That's really startling.
yeah, I mean, there's so much that goes into why the a person can have an unstable housing situation.
Mhm. Now, what are your upcoming projects? So you've tackled a lot of tough issues, dementia, the unhoused, you're dealing with colorism and all kinds of issues. What projects do you have upcoming?
Well, those are under submission, and then I'm working with my critique group to get other manuscripts polished, and they're kind of happier in a way, lighter,
Right.
about,
Right.
yeah. And so I'm experimenting with the joy of life,
Right.
and life, beautiful. And so, if anything, I'm polishing up manuscripts and working on the craft and attending conferences. There are a few coming up, like Quayle and the
Oh,
Library Association, in San Diego, and just attending seminars. Like last night was the Authors Guild, which was wonderful,
yeah.
and yeah, and marketing, and
Mhm.
because the book recently launched, and so I'm trying to figure out how to really amp up the book sales.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And really, just your entire conversation for anyone listening just gives a view of all the elements going into getting your foothold if you're interested in traditional publishing. You talked about critiques, getting into groups, learning the craft. So, all the things that you're doing can give somebody a blueprint on what to follow if they're interested in pursuing that path. Because I get a lot of questions from people on how can they, especially indie authors who might be interested in getting a traditionally published book. They may not know the pathway.
Yeah.
So,
And sometimes there are different paths. Like mine was through a meetup group. I know other people who query. I know other people who actually use these carousel opportunities where there's an opportunity for a critique, but then it's open for an agent to look at for a certain window.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I myself, I found my agent. I did query, but I attended a conference and then I got a critique from an agent. And then that led me to go on and get my current agent. So getting critiques at different writers' events are a great way to get exposure and get feedback on what you're writing and get direction as to where you should go.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, definitely to put yourself out there. And
Yeah.
yeah, and especially people who are more seasoned, it's just so invaluable because you really don't know what you don't know until they're telling you, what is standard or even what their resources are. Like one of the events, she actually gave her email and said, no, no, no,
Ooh,
contact me. And
that's great.
yeah,
Ooh.
supportive in that way. I didn't contact her. I was a little too shy, but I really appreciated that she reached out and wanted to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really nice. Well, Roxanne, I'm so happy to have had you on and to learn about your book. And can you tell people where they can reach you and where they can buy your book?
Yes, the book is available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and you can reach me at Instagram, roxanne.chester, and on my website, roxannechester.com.
Okay, and show your book one more time.
Yeah.
You didn't show it there. Okay, so this is her book. This is my bag, and it's talking about the unhoused and educating children and their parents on the experience, what their life is like. So this is very good. And I want to thank you. What's that say there? I can't read that. What's back? See, it comes backwards on here.
Oh, it says, this is my bag. It holds my life, my thoughts, my art.
Oh, okay,
And
that's sweet. Yes.
beginning.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Roxanne, for coming on and sharing your gifts with us, sharing your journey, which will be inspiring to many, I'm sure.
Yes.
And thank you guys for tuning in, everyone that tuned in, and look forward to seeing you next week for another episode of Write This. Bye bye.